Here we are, the King James Bible Prophecy Church and Table. We're here studying the history book, the book of Jasher. It's an ancient book. Great history that harmonizes with all of your 77 books of the King James. It's relative to all of it. It is just a great read. So here we are in chapter 13 now. And in 13, we have Abram and Sarai in Canaan. Okay, so on we go in 13. In verse 1, it says, And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son Abram, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. Period. And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. In 2 it says, And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with God and men, and that the Lord his God was with him. And some of the people of the land of Haran came and joined Abram. And he taught them the instruction of the Lord and his ways. And these men remained with Abram in his house, and they adhered to him. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're in his tent. When it comes to the house, that can be a building, but it's actually many times a term for family, friends, all the above living, the relatives, people that you're in league with, people that you're working with, the house, okay? The finances, all of it, packed together. All right, so that's 2. So they joined to that, and they had their own living quarters, folks. My point. In 3, and Abram remained in the land 3 years, and at the expiration of 3 years, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am the Lord who brought thee forth from Kasdim, and delivered thee from the hands of all thine enemies. And this is Jesus Christ here in 3. In 4 it says, And now therefore, if thou wilt hearken to my voice, and keep my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, that's the doctrine, folks, then will I cause thy enemies to fall before thee, and I will multiply thy seed like the stars of heaven. And I will send my blessing upon all the works of thy hands, and thou shalt lack nothing. In 5 it says, Arise now, take thy wife and all belonging to thee, and go to the land of Canaan, and remain there, and I will there be unto thee for a God, and I will bless thee. And Abram rose and took his wife and all belonging to him, and he went to the land of Canaan, as the Lord had told him. And Abram was 50 years old when he went from Haran, and there's parentheses, 55 would be the number in the King James Bible. Okay. And obviously that's correct because time has went by since he was 50. Okay. All right. In 6 it says, and Abram came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city, and he there pitched his tent amongst the children of Canaan, inhabitants of the land. And the Lord appeared to Abraham when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him, this is the land which I gave unto thee and to thy seed after thee forever. And I will make thy seed like the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed for an inheritance all the lands which thou seest. All right, and even though that got mixed up there with the 12 sons, the 12 tribes, folks, it's going to be complete with the New Jerusalem recreated world. So this promise in 7 is going to absolutely be fulfilled. And of course, you know that's Christ talking to him there. 8, and Abram built an altar in the place where God had spoken to him, and Abram there called upon the name of the Lord. In 9 we have the death of the great saint Noah. So here it is in 9. At that time, at the end of 3 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, in that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of the life of Abram, and all the days that Noah lived were 950 years, and he died. 10, and Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, he, his wife, and all belonging to him, and all those that accompanied him, together with those that joined him from the people of the land But Nahor, Abram's brother, and Terah his father, and Lot the son of Haran, and all belonging to them, dwelt in Haran. Okay, and then here we have the Sodom and Gomorrah revolt, if you want to call it that. In 11, in the 5th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the cities of the plain revolted from the power of Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. For all the kings of the cities of the plain had served Chedorlaomer 12 years and given him a yearly tax. But in those days, in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. Okay, so there's your taxing. That goes way back, doesn't it? In 12, Elam conquers Babel here. It says in 12, and in the 10th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, there was war between Nimrod, king of Shinar, and Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. And Nimrod came to fight with Chedorlaomer and to subdue him. 13, for Chedorlaomer was at that time one of the princes of the hosts of Nimrod. And when all the people of the tower were dispersed, and those that remained were also scattered upon the face of the earth, Chedorlaomer went to the land of Elam and reigned over it and rebelled against his Lord. 14. And in those days when Nimrod saw that the cities of the plain had rebelled, he came with pride and anger to war with Chedorlaomer, and Nimrod assembled all his princes and subjects, about 700,000 men, and went against Chedorlaomer, and Chedorlaomer went out to meet him with 5,000 men. And they prepared for the battle in the valley of Babel, which is between Elam and Shinar. 15. And all those kings fought there, and Nimrod and his people were smitten before the people of Chedorlaomer. And there fell from Nimrod's men about 600,000. Wow. And Mardon, the king's son, fell amongst them. And that would be Marduk, the giant. That's what archaeology says. 16. And Nimrod fled and returned in shame and disgrace to his land. And he was under subjection to Chedorlaomer for a long time. And Chedorlaomer returned to his land and sent princes of his host to the kings that dwelt around him, to Arioch, king of Elasar, and to Tidal, king of Goim, and made a covenant with them, and they were all obedient to his commands. So you see how when it comes to war, when it comes to battles, that God is over those battles. Someone said that to me. They said, well, if people ever rebelled against the world government and their great armies would just stomp them out. This is a military man, see? But he don't realize that God is the God of the battles, all right? And God can make 10 men overthrow a whole country. Just can. It's in the Lord's hand to do it. And it looks like that's what happened here, because the balances were way against Chedorlaomer. And Nimrod got his, whipped and went with his tail between his legs. Okay, in 17, we have a 430-year prophecy given. We know this from what? Well, from chapter 15 there in Genesis. And it was in the 15th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 70th year of the life of Abram. And the Lord appeared to Abram in that year, and he said to him, I am the Lord who brought thee out from Ur-Kasdim to give thee this land for an inheritance. 18. Now therefore walk before me and be perfect, and keep my commands. For to thee and to thy seed I will give this land for an inheritance, from the river Mizraim unto the great river Euphrates. 19. And thou shalt come to thy fathers in peace and in good age, and in the 4th generation shall return here in this land, and shall inherit it forever. And Abram built an altar, and he called upon the name of the Lord who appeared to him, and he brought up sacrifices upon the altar to the Lord. So here Abram moves back to Haran. At that time Abram returned and went to Haran to see his father and mother and his father's household. And Abram and his wife and all belonging to him returned to Haran. And Abram dwelt in Haran 5 years. 21. And many of the people of Haran, about 72 men, followed Abram, and Abram taught them the instruction of the Lord and his ways, and he taught them to know the Lord. Okay, now you see, we all have to be taught. We just do, and that's the beauty of having the doctrine. In 22, Abram, here he returns to Canaan at the age of 75. In those days the Lord appeared to Abram in Haran, and he said to him, Behold, I spoke unto thee these 20 years back, saying, Go forth from thy land, from thy birthplace, and from thy father's house, to the land which I have shown thee, to give it to thee and to thy children, for there is that land will I bless thee. For there in that land will I bless thee, and make thee a great nation, and make thy name great, and in thee shall the families of the earth be blessed. And this is where every kindred, tongue, and tribe that isn't mating with fallen angels will have a remnant right there. And that goes back to Genesis 15. 24 says, Now therefore arise, go forth from this place, thou, thy wife, and all belonging to thee, also every one born in thy house, and all the souls thou hast made in Haran, and bring them out with thee from here, and rise to return to the land of Canaan. 25. And Abram arose and took his wife Sarai, and all belonging to him, and all that were born to him in his house, and the souls which they had made in Haran, and they came out to go to the land of Canaan. 26. And Abram went and returned to the land of Canaan, according to the word of the Lord. And Lot, the son of his brother Haran, went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he went forth from Haran to return to the land of Canaan. 27. And he came to the land of Canaan according to the word of the Lord to Abram. And he pitched his tent, and he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, and with him was Lot his brother's son, and all belonging to him. 28. And the Lord again appeared to Abram, and said, To thy seed will I give this land. And he there built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him, which is still to this day in the plains of Mamre. And we might as well just go on right here, because we're going to get the roots of the Pharaoh here. And this is in 14, Pharaoh Rick-Aion. And verse 1 in chapter 14, it says, In those days there was in the land of Shinar a wise man who had understanding in all wisdom, and of a beautiful appearance. But he was poor and indigent. His name was Rick-Aion, and he was hard set to support himself. Yeah, see, we're kind of changing this is a kind of a different story that went on here during this time. So this is the beauty of this history book here. We're going to get the roots of Pharaoh here. 2, and he resolved to go to Egypt to Oswiris, the son of Anom, king of Egypt, to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might find grace in his sight, to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Rikayon did so. And when Rikayon came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king, and the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the king of Egypt, for it was then the custom of the king of Egypt that he went from his royal palace and was seen abroad only one day in the year. And after that the king would return to his palace to remain there. In 4, and on the day when the king went forth, he passed judgment in the land, and everyone having a suit came before the king that day to obtain his request. Okay, to obtain his request. So he's judging. In 5, and when Rikayon heard of the custom in Egypt, and that he could not come into the presence of the king, he grieved greatly and was very sorrowful. And in the evening Rikayon went out and found a house in ruins, formerly a bakehouse in Egypt, and he abode there all night in bitterness of soul, and pinched with anger, and pinched with hunger, and sleep was removed from him. Okay, so he's really upset there. All right. In 7, Rikayon considered within himself what he should do in the town until the king made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. Okay, and he rose in the morning, and he walked about and met in his way those who sold vegetables and various sorts of seed, with which that they supplied the inhabitants. And Rikayon wished to do the same in order to get a maintenance in the city, but he was unacquainted with the custom of the people, and he was like a blind man among them. Okay, so even though he's wise, he's lost here, isn't he? 10, and he went and obtained vegetables to sell them for his support, and the rabble assembled about him and ridiculed him, and took his vegetables from him and left him nothing. And he rose up there in bitterness of soul, and went sighing to the bakehouse in which he had remained all the night before, and he slept there the second night. So how about that? How about him just taking your stuff from you? Anyway, on we go in 12. And on that night again he reasoned within himself how he could save himself from starvation, and he devised a scheme how to act. And he rose up in the morning and acted ingeniously, and went and hired 30 strong men of the rabble, carrying their war instruments in their hands, And he led them to the top of the Egyptian sepulchre, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, Thus saith the king, Strengthen yourselves and be valiant men, and let no man be buried here until 200 pieces of silver be given. And then he may be buried. And those men did according to the order of Ricayon to the people of Egypt the whole of that year. 15. And in 8 months' time Ricayon and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold. And Ricayon took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men, and he gave them horses, and they remained with him. 16. And when the year came round, at the time the king went forth into the town, all the inhabitants of Egypt assembled together to speak to him concerning the work of Ricayon and his men. And the king went forth on the appointed day, and all the Egyptians came before him, and cried unto him, saying, May the king live forever. What is this thing thou doest in the town to thy servants? Not to suffer a dead body to be buried until so much silver and gold be given. Was there ever the like unto this done in the whole earth, from the days of former kings, yea, even from the days of Adam unto this day, that the dead should not be buried only for a set price? 19. We know it to be the custom of kings to take a yearly tax from the living, but thou dost not only do this, but from the dead also thou extractest a tax day by day. 20. Now, O king, we can no more bear this, for the whole city is ruined on this account, and dost thou not know it? And I'll tell you what, taxing will ruin you. All right? Okay, so there's that. So hiding in his palace there, he doesn't know what's going on, does he? 21. And when the king heard all that they had spoken, he was very wroth, and his anger burned within him at this affair, for he had known nothing of it. 22. And the king said, Who and where is he that dares to do this wicked thing in my land without my command? Surely you will tell me. 23. And they told him all the works of Ricayon and his men, and the king's anger was aroused, and he ordered Ricayon and his men to be brought before him. And Ricayon took about 1,000 children, sons and daughters, and clothed them in silk and embroidery, and he set them upon horses, and sent them to the king by means of his men. And he also took a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones, and a strong and beautiful horse, as a present for the king, with which he came before the king and bowed down to the earth before him. And the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt wondered at the work of Ricayon, and they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the king. And it pleased the king, and he wondered at it. And when Ricayon set before the king asked him concerning all his works. And Ricayon spoke all his words wisely before the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the king heard the words of Rikayon and his wisdom, Rikayon found grace in his sight, and he met with grace and kindness from all the servants of the king and from all the inhabitants of Egypt, on account of his wisdom and excellent speeches, and from that time they loved him exceedingly. 27. And the king answered and said to Rikayon, Thy name shall no more be called Rikayon, but Pharaoh shall be thy name, since thou didst exact a tax from the dead. And he called his name Pharaoh. Now remember, in the Egyptian mystery school, they worship death. In fact, there's a book they call it, it's the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So they worship the double dead. All right, so enough on the Egyptian mystery school. There's my point. 28. And the king and his subjects loved Rikayon for his wisdom, and they consulted with all the inhabitants of Egypt to make him perfect under the king. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and its wise men did so, and it was made a law in Egypt. And they made Rikayon Pharaoh perfect under Ashworth, king of Egypt, and Rikayon Pharaoh governed over Egypt, daily administering justice to the whole city. But Ashworth, the king, would judge the people of the land one day in the year. And one day in the year, when he went out to make his appearance. 31. And Rikayon Pharaoh cunningly usurped the government of Egypt, and he exacted a tax from all the inhabitants of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Rikayon Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every king that should reign over them and their seed in Egypt Pharaoh. How do you like that? And we end here, get this, in verse 33. That is the dead. You talk about the dead. 33 is an occult number of the dead. Just is. 33. Therefore all the kings that reigned in Egypt from that time forward were called Pharaoh unto this day. Now that's a little tidbit that you just wouldn't get anywhere else. Okay, so there it is in the history. There is how we got that name Pharaoh. And so I think that's a very interesting fact here in Jasher.